The latest development of Nongsa's special economic zone as a digital economy. What is the latest development of it?
Well, excuse me, as you know, we opened in 2019, just on the edge of the pandemic. Things slowed down a little bit, but certainly within the last couple of years, we've had a lot of progression. In 2024, we projected a revenue, like the first quarter was about 200 million. And at the end of 2024, we reached 360 million. And so in 2025, we're looking at the same numbers, probably ending around 400 million towards the end of 2025. That's what we're projecting. And that's because of the acceleration of data center allocation into Indonesia as a potential. And so, and Nongsa Digital Park doesn't have data centers. It's actually a whole ecosystem of digital companies and startups. So we're looking at animation, visual effects, gaming. We're also looking at education, training. So we have this entire ecosystem in Nongsa Digital Park, and the interest of Indonesia as a market has greatly accelerated this growth, not just from the infrastructure side, but from the individual companies looking for potential access into Indonesia. And because we're so close to Singapore, it's very strategic.
And how was the performance in 2024? Do you think it's met the expectation, or it's actually under the expectation?
Actually, we've seen the increase in data center interest in Indonesia and in Southeast Asia has been steadily increasing. There's a huge interest because obviously of the economy. The Indonesian digital economy is growing massively. The population base, the talent, the government's mandate to digitalize and transform the industries, and so there's a huge need for infrastructure as well as services relating to the digital growth of the country. So what we've seen is that this steady growth has not stopped. Is continued, and we're on our expectation. We've had our target is looking at a total by 2032 of $4 billion US investment, and so we're sort of like close to halfway on achieving that investment. So we got a few more steps to go, but right now it's looking very positive.
And we're almost at the end of the first quarter of 2025. What is your evaluation?
Well, again, we're looking very positive. We currently have 2 data centers that are in operation right now, with another 4 under construction, with another 3 set to begin construction in the first quarter of 2026. So with 9 data center plots in operation, we're looking at a megawatt output of about 530 megawatt. Of data centers. And so along with that, there's going to be an additional requirement for power, infrastructure, green energy, training, and the ecosystem will just grow. So we're very confident that the outlook for between 2025 to next year certainly is quite solid for us.
So does this mean that the data centers determine the growth in Nongsa's special economic zone?
Yes, from the beginning, Nongsa has been a hub of sorts because of its proximity to Malaysia and Singapore. And because Nongsa in Batam, Riau, is outside of the Ring of Fire. So from the safety perspective, we're looking at, because data centers need their backups, their vaults where a lot of important information is stored, and you want to place them in the most safe environment possible. So Batam itself and Nongsa has been, is outside the Ring of Fire. So we're going to constantly have that interest. Certainly the proximity in terms of not just distance, but also connectivity. We have 13 fiber optic cables that are coming into Batam. We have an additional 2 that are going through licensing right now the cables that are going in from Singapore directly to Batam. So that increases the latency on operations of these data centers. On top of that, it's all about also the training and manpower. As we go into this digital era. We're looking at a lot of need for trained professionals to operate the data centers moving forward. And with the cybersecurity threats that are constantly looming, AI integration, there's a lot of need for that talent pool, and Indonesia has that talent pool. And for many years, we've demonstrated that in the animation and visual effects business, where we've grown one of the largest companies in animation in Indonesia. So finding that talent is very key, identifying that, and proving that Indonesia is not just the market, but has a huge talent base. And that's why we've constantly had that interest from data centers.
And what is the feedback of foreign investor about data center sector in Indonesia?
Well, it's been very positive. And aside from the positives of Nongsa, Indonesia itself is a huge growing market. I mean, we're talking about the digitization of the industry, the fact that the government has placed a lot of emphasis on skills training and development for a new generation of young Indonesians, that and existing government workers, and how we're able to make our not only the ministries but private sector more efficient. Working in terms of cybersecurity, AI, just efficiencies in digitalization. But as a market itself, Indonesia is very interesting. I mean, we have a potential huge market of, right now we're looking at close to 350 billion in terms of revenue that's going to be generated from the digital sectors alone in the next coming few years. So with the amount of population base that are using apps, that are using digitized processes, banking, you're talking about everything having to social media, content, it's all stored on, it's all stored at these data centers. And we need more data centers in Indonesia for the population base. And so the market alone is a big draw for Indonesia. Also, there are other factors as well. We're talking about infrastructure. There's land availability, talent, but we're also talking about energy. Right, the competitive nature of how Indonesia, against its Southeast Asian neighbors, have an abundance of energy, and we're talking about also the potential for green energy, because in the future data centers are moving more towards the green energy, and Indonesia having geothermal, gas, solar, that's a big benefit as well. So there's a lot of factors that make Indonesia a very interesting destination for data centers.